Today I have Carl Ryan. He's a project geologist with Etruscus Resources Corp. In the past 2 weeks, the company's put out two news releases. The first one on the Newfoundland on their Lewis property, and the second one in the Golden Triangle on their Rock and Roll property. How are you doing today, Carl?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're really excited to talk to you today, and if you could, tell us what you're excited about for these two properties that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the best way to do this will be to run through our presentation a bit, and I'll spend a bit more time fleshing out, the stuff that's pertinent to the news releases. So yeah, I don't know how familiar everyone is with the Etruscus story, so I thought we'd just start out with some high level stuff about the company. We're a relatively new company. We've only got 38 million shares outstanding. We went public in 2019, and pretty tight share structure. I think that's a product of the management team being pretty good at putting all the money into the ground, and not spending it all on promotion. So we've been able to get quite a bit done in the last 4 years, and yeah, we've got two great properties, one in northwestern BC in the Golden Triangle, and one in central Newfoundland. So like great jurisdictions, a lot going on in both these areas, and quite exciting places to be working. I'm gonna skim through some of that. So I want to start with the Lewis property. So this is out in Newfoundland. As some of you may be familiar, there's been a substantial amount of work that's gone into Newfoundland in the last couple of years. A bit of a staking rush took place after Newfound Gold made some pretty substantial discoveries. That was maybe 2020 or 2019, 100 grams over almost 20 meters. That was the initial drill hole that got everyone excited. And so since then, there's been a lot of money going into the area, and we obviously got excited ourselves and managed to get a nice parcel of land pretty central to a lot of the action. So we're the Lewis property is about 10 kilometers west of the Keats Zone discovery. So we're right in the heat of the action. We've got exploits around us, now Gander Gold to the west, and then Newfound Gold bordering us to the south. So a great location, and compared to, I'll talk about the Golden Triangle after, but we've got just the infrastructure here is just a dream to work with. We're about 4 kilometers from the Trans-Canada Highway, and we've got ATV roads that crisscross the property, so no need for a helicopter. We've got even a power line that goes across it. So overall, a very nice place to be working. And the people are really great, for pretty pro-mining group of government and locals. So it's good. In terms of the property itself, we were lucky to get our hands on something that already had some substantial work done. In 1990, Noranda worked the property as they did with a lot of Newfoundland, and they actually drilled 14 drill holes across the property. Little highlights included a gram per ton over 5 meters, but what was really great about the work they did was that pretty well every drill hole hit some form of anomalous gold. So that was obviously, nice to pick up this property with a bit of historic work. We know that there's already gold there, and we've been able to flesh that out over the last 2 years now. So we've had 2 summers to work on it, and I'm just gonna flip us into kind of the more recent work that we've done. So over the last 2 summers, we did 2,000 soil samples, some rock samples. We did a 30 line kilometer IP survey over the most prospective areas. And then we also took all that data that Noranda had compiled, and we digitized it, and we put it into 3D, and we, relogged their drill holes via digitization and stuff of that nature that really let us understand the whole property in a more comprehensive fashion. So news went out, I think, might be a month ago now, maybe just 2 or 3 weeks. And what that really focused on was the IP survey. So that's kind of the most recent piece of data that was completed this past summer, 2022. And when we got the results back from that, we were pretty excited. It's lined up beautifully with the other work that was done on the property. Just looking at this map here, what we see is that we've got these chargeability anomalies, and these are, you know, pretty strong chargeability anomalies, up to 25 millivolts per volt. And they're lining up with these geological structures that we're seeing in magnetics. And they're also lining up perfectly with some soil geochemistry. So significant soil samples done on the property, and we've got these gold, antimony, and arsenic soil anomalies. And it looks like, you know, they're following some of these same trends that we see in the chargeability. So that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
And then on
And
top,
sorry, you also had a couple of high grade gold samples here that I'm seeing at each of these anomalies, like even up to 24 grams for target B, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, when we were on this property, I think we took about 60 rock samples. And I should know the exact quote, but it was at least 20 of them, if not more, had over a gram gold. It was not hard to find rock samples that were, you know, grading high gold. This one specific area, yeah, down here. This is a little zone. You can tell someone's actually gone in here, and the earth's been a bit moved around. I don't know if it was a trench. It wasn't written about historically, but we took about 6 rock samples in here because we liked, you know, there's a good amount of sulfide. Not really sure what you'd expect though, because it was our first time sampling on the property. And sure enough, 3 out of those 6 samples came back with over 20 grams per ton gold.
Oh, great.
And so we know that, what's that?
That's great. Yeah, sorry, continue, please.
Yeah, totally. Like, you know, we were definitely excited to see, you know, these rocks that we knew they're pretty much, they are float, they're angular float, but they're coming from somewhere very local. And, you know, that alone gets us pretty excited. We do more digging and understand that there's no drilling that's been done here. And then we put it on our maps here, and we get our geophysics back, and we go, okay, well, it's also sitting right along this trend, right near this intersection of 2 chargeability anomalies. So yeah, in terms of exploration geology, you kind of got all the arrows are pointing in one direction, and you better go look in there. So
Yeah. So I mean, it's they're, you know, because it's in a trench and you dug them out, it's not like they've probably come from some other source, right? They're probably coming from this location.
exactly. And having, you know, been the person that took the samples myself, these are like very angular rocks. They've not traveled far at all.
Okay.
And we have other samples. I almost want to show you the one that's sitting beside my computer here, but you know, it was almost a sheet, a quartz vein that is about 10 centimeters thick, and it was about 3 feet wide, and you can tell it was pretty much in place. There's no way this thing had traveled more than 10 meters or so, and
Okay.
it was also running 10 grams
Oh,
gold
yeah.
and lining up along these chargeability structures. And so, you know, the rock sampling and the geophysics were really just kind of like,
So it's aligning, yeah.
yeah, exciting straight off the
Yeah.
bat.
So
So
I mean, given, you know, you guys are in proximity to Newfound and you've picked out the rocks out of the ground, do you know if they're similar to, you know, the rocks that were found nearby at Keats?
yeah, I mean, so that's a good question. What we're playing with here, it is slightly different geologically. So we are hosted in the Mount Peyton batholith. So that's a bit of a different geology than what they have over there. Although for us, it's, you know, it's something that I think not many people have actually looked at this area because it was in a batholith, and historically, you know, people were looking for these more traditional mesothermal vein systems. But by no means are these batholiths incapable of hosting similar high-grade gold mineralization. There's examples in Ontario where, you know, same thing. People walked over top of these intrusions for a number of years, and if it was pink on the map, they didn't bother looking at it. And then I can't remember which one it was exactly, but, you know, all of a sudden people start looking at these things a little differently, and hey, sure enough, they have host just as significant gold mineralization. So it's slightly different geology, but our proximity and just the overall, you know, timing of this intrusion, timing of their mineralization, we know that there was, you know, some important things geologically and in terms of gold deposition occurring at the same time as this intrusion was in place. So hey, maybe even this intrusion is some part of the overall story for newfound gold, and we're, we could be playing with, I don't want to say source, but something that might have a big role in the overall endowment of the area.
Right, and you've certainly done all the homework. I mean, all the ducks are lining up. You got high grade gold samples right above the IP chargeability anomalies. You're picking out the rocks right out of the ground, high grade gold that you can see. And you've
Yeah,
also got the high, the gold, the arsenic, and the soil anomalies basically at all these 4 targets, right?
it's literally
Yeah,
sitting there waiting to be drilled. I mean, and so there are some historic drill holes,
yeah,
some of them across the trends. And actually, let me flip to the next image here. This is the one that kind of hits home nicely. And I'll go back quickly just to reference. This is now a cross section from A to A prime here.
okay,
So
yeah,
across the bottom of this image through those targets. And when you put it in 3D, it just really, I don't know, helps validate it for me. You can see these anomalies going to depth. I like to point out off in the right side here, this is a drill hole that had a gram over 5 meters. And you can see that, hey, look at that. It stopped just a bit short of the actual chargeability anomaly. So the majority of these anomalies have not been tested with a drill. They've been
right.
tested just enough to say, hey, there's a bit of gold around, but none of them really got into the guts of the chargeability anomalies. So
Yeah, and one
that's,
thing to note here is your chargeability anomalies are, looking at the left side column, they're pretty close to surface, right?
yeah, this is all stuff that we can drill quite efficiently. We're hoping to probably early 2023 here get out there with a drill and test these things with multiple, we're dealing with high grade gold. So you might take more than one drill hole to get into the high grade stuff, but yeah, we'd like to test most of all these targets and test these trends that haven't ever been tested before,
Yeah.
and likely testing them along strike. So you're doing multiple drill holes along strike and seeing what you see, and hopefully that's maybe 15 drill holes. You can definitely drill quite affordably out here, and we can
Yeah.
get a lot done for a lot
You'd probably be
cheaper.
able to, 15, you could probably poke a couple of holes in all these 4 targets and see if they're, what you're looking for is there.
Exactly. So yeah, it's kind of all poised, ready to get the truth machine out and figure out what's going on at depth. One other thing I wanted to point out was just that from the historic drilling, they never really encountered the grades that we've seen at surface, these 20-gram golds, 25-gram golds. So I think there's a lot of upside for drilling through some of these trends and hopefully getting those grades that we see at surface
Yeah,
in the drill.
and it doesn't look like any of the historical holes went through these hot pink anomalies as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the definitely, what they wouldn't have been able to do back in the 90s with their surveys is put it all in 3D and spin it around, and we can see exactly how far these drill holes went and realize that, hey, there's a lot of untested targets on this property.
Yeah. And one last question on this property is, are you guys ready to, do you guys have all the permits you need to start, putting the holes in the
Yeah,
ground, or is there still some work they need to do there?
we received our drill permit a couple months ago now, I think. So we are good to go. We've got, we're a growing team of workers out there that we're building relationships with. So we're all systems a go in the new year here.
It's great. That's exciting. Yeah.
Yep. Um, yeah. So if we're done with Newfoundland there, I mean, this is only half the story as much as
Yeah.
I like
So yeah,
talking about
that's,
this, but
that's a really, first part, that's a really great story already, right? And
yeah,
Newfoundland, right by Newfound Gold, you got great target. Looks like everything's lined up, ready to go, right? So what's the second part of the story?
yeah. So I'll flip over to northwestern BC now. And so this just an image to just give you a sense of a bit of a change in topography from Newfoundland. We're playing up in some alpine terrain, and we're looking here at the discovery showing. And so this is what this news release was that we talked about, or that just came out a few days ago. And so imprint that image in your head, and we'll touch base on it shortly. But yeah, we've got two properties in northwestern BC in the Golden Triangle. Again, we're in a great location. We've got past producing mines around us. Snip mine is only 7 kilometers to the east of our property boundary. We've got Galore Creek 20 kilometers to the north. There's significant, seems like in the last few years, there's been a lot of movement from majors stepping up into the Golden Triangle. And Newcrest has been making some big moves with Red Chris, and Galore Creek, that's partially owned by Newmont and Teck. So, it's good to see a lot of action in the Golden Triangle, and then still discoveries being made. There's pretty much, some of the most metal endowment, I think, in Canada for sure is right up here in this little slice of golden pie. So it's an awesome place to be working, and infrastructure is improving. It's not quite like Newfoundland, but we've got 2015 they put a Northwest transmission line in, and that was kind of a catalyst for a lot of road work and mine operations in the area to come on board. So it's infrastructure is improving, and it's a great place geologically. So we're pretty happy to have a nice big claim group, 27,000 hectares,
and a very safe jurisdiction as well.
Everybody. Yeah, totally. We've got good relationships with the local First Nations, and overall, everything is pretty well established up there for mineral exploration. I'm not actually going to spend too long just on the history. Just mention that there is actually a historic resource on the Rock and Roll property. It's a VMS system down in the southeast, and that was actually what we picked up the property originally with that asset in 2019. And we did focus on that for the first couple of years. We looked at expanding it, and we expanded the strike length, and overall the horizon was expanded. But what we focused on the last 2 years was the extended claim. We picked up quite a large land package to the northwest, and we've been looking up there for primarily porphyries. We've got two main targets that have emerged from the last couple summers work, and so that's what I want to dive into here. So this is the discovery target and the Zappa anomaly. So we're jumping right into the news release that came out 2 days ago. And this, I guess, just to give a little overview, because I think the story here is quite important. It's not just what we found last week or what we found the year before, but to explain a bit that hopefully you can see my cursor. I'm looking at the map here.
Yeah.
And this discovery showing, so that's 400 meters wide or so, 350. That was what was originally worked in this area in the 80s. There were some guys that came in and they spent 3 years working on that, and they trenched and they mapped and they did some sampling. And it was actually what that image was at the start a few minutes ago. It's really altered. It's heavily altered, full of sulfide. QSP blitzed out. It's obvious that there's been some hot fluids going through there, and they discovered there was high silver numbers. There's also a lot of high volatile elements, the arsenics, the antimonies, but it wasn't enough for them to keep chipping away or drilling. So they did their work and they walked away, and it really hadn't been touched since. So when we picked up this extended claim, it was definitely something we thought we should go take a look at. And just this past summer, we decided to run some IP lines over top of it, some geophysical, a geophysical survey. So originally we had these 4 lines going over top of this survey area. And when me and Steven, the VPX, we were out mapping off to the east here, kind of help organize the guys for the IP lines, and we start mapping off to the east, and we start noticing that some of this alteration keeps trending. It kind of looks like it pinches out a bit here, but then you go a little farther and it grows, and we actually ended up mapping it about 1 kilometer off to the east, 1.1 kilometers off to the east, right up onto that receding glacier. And I think some of the reason this might have been missed in the past is because that glacier was probably a lot farther down that valley.
Mm-hmm.
And also the way those glaciers, they often deposit glacial moraine, it's called, and so it kind of obscures some of the outcrop, and it doesn't give the rock enough time to oxidize and become that bright orange gossiness beacon that we often look for. But that was, you know, a fairly substantial addition to the target when we noticed all this alteration off to the east. So Stephen, definitely thankful to him. He said, well, let's, you know, we've got a budget and we've got timelines, but let's throw a few extra IP lines off to the east. So we added what was originally, we had 6 lines total off to the east. We only got time to add these 3 because we had another part of the survey to do on another part of the property. But thank goodness we did add these 3 lines because what
Oh yeah,
we've
it just
started,
keeps getting better, right?
yeah, well,
As you went, you started off on the west, and then the fourth one looked kind of interesting. You kept on
yeah,
going, and it looks like it's getting more exciting.
exactly. So it's, you know, before we'd even got results back from the survey, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, wouldn't it be great if, you know, we get some chargeability anomaly, maybe the thing's got a slight, you know, dip to the east to it, and the heat source is off to the west, was kind of what we had, you know, modeled in our head. And sure enough, we get these 3 other chargeability, well, these IP lines back, and the chargeability anomaly underneath there is just, you know, exactly as we could hope for. So this anomaly, we're calling it the Zappa anomaly, to kind of separate a bit from the discovery showing, because they are slightly different parts of the system, I guess. But this Zappa anomaly, it's 600 meters north south so far. It's open, you know, that's our last IP line. It shows that it seems to be growing off to the east, and it's open in pretty well directions, open to depth. And the next image, and I'll spin it around in 3D
Okay.
here in a moment. But yeah, it's painting the perfect picture of what we'd like to see for a porphyry discovery in this area. It's
And
also
sorry, what makes you say it would be a porphyry discovery? Just for some of the folks that might not know.
definitely, yeah, good question. The alteration is pretty important. So at surface here, we have QSP alteration, quartz, sericite, pyrite. And this is one of the, you know, within a porphyry model, we have different halos around it that tell us where we are in this overall system. And so the alteration that we're seeing at surface is indicative of porphyry mineralization. And one other point to bring out there is this. It's not a super highlight in the map, but this here is the red line, and that becomes pretty important as a mapping tool in the Golden Triangle. It's there's a lot of talk about it, and it kind of gets bantered around as a bit of a selling piece. But for us, we've had eyes in this area on the exact Jack formation. You know, it's the conglomerate unit, and what it tells us is that we're playing in the right area. We're in the right time horizon when the Texas Creek intrusive suite. So those are the intrusions that have brought most of the mineralization in the Golden Triangle. Your KSMs, your red Chris, and so this time horizon tells us that, okay, we're in the right spot in the rock package, that the intrusions that brought all the mineralization in the Golden Triangle, well, most of it, should be emplaced within this area. So it's definitely indicative that, you know, if this is a nice big intrusion underneath us, the chances are, you know, definitely higher that it's of the Texas Creek suite, and therefore well mineralized. We still don't know that. That's what the drill gets to test. But overall, again, we've got a lot of the things lining up for this to be,
Got it.
you know,
Yeah.
exciting drill hole.
And there's no previous or historical drilling in here, right?
Nope, never been drilled. It was actually neat. Just at a convention a month or so ago, I ran into a fellow. He just retired about a year previous, but he was the one that had actually done the work in the 80s, and I was amazed at his memory was still sharp. He was like, oh yeah, that discovery show, and I remember that, and he was kind of excited about it. So it was cool to come full circle and have him be freshly excited that we were doing some work on it. And at the time, I wasn't able to talk to the anomaly yet, but it would be good to touch base with him again, because yeah, I know he, back in the day, I think he had ideas about wanting to drill it. So overall, yeah, it's got all the ingredients of a porphyry intrusion and the big alteration at surface. Let me actually flip to the next image because it kind of gives a better sense of the shape and size of this thing. So here we are looking obliquely, and you can see, this is the last IP line, and this is what it shows, this growing anomaly. And I wonder if I might be able just to spin it in 3D here. Hopefully I don't mess up too much of the screen share, but bear with me for 2 seconds. So freeze frame that view in your head here, and we can look at this anomaly now in, actually, I'm gonna have to share it. That's what, new share, sorry for this. One moment, coming in, there, that should be it. And so this is, the IP data in 3D here. And as I just wanna pull back all the low chargeability stuff, and you start to see the shape of this Zappa anomaly, as we're calling it, is just, you can tell it's just growing off to the east, getting bigger with each IP line. And I like showing this as well because it kind of speaks to the overall porphyry model and why people would have been here originally. So the discovery showing itself is actually this anomaly up here. And it kind of validates, okay, our IP line, it's working, but they're kind of, they don't have, roots, and it's going, well, what drove these two systems? And in your porphyry model, you have these upper level epithermal things that are, might be a bit displaced from your main porphyry body, and they're going to have, elevated antimony, bismuth, arsenics, your silvers. And that's, I think, exactly what we're seeing up here. And now essentially what we've hopefully identified is the heat source for this stuff that they were playing around with in the 80s, but probably didn't fully understand the gravity and the size, and even the porphyry model at the time was not all that well understood. So definitely excited to put a drill hole through this.
Oh yeah, definitely looks very exciting to put it in there and see what you find.
The Zappa anomaly, it's we've got a rock and roll theme going on. And so it's definitely 2 IP surveys in the last year. We didn't drill in the last 2 years, so it was really just about proving up stuff at surface, and great results from both of them. So super excited about that. And we hope to get out here, and it's already at a drill ready stage. We're probably still going to do some IP lines right up to the glacier to get a full understanding of its shape and size. But in my opinion, it's ready to go. It definitely warrants a drill hole because of where we are and what we see at surface.
Yeah, perfect. You guys got 2 really great properties, and looks like they're both ready to go. Sounds like you'll be at in the Newfoundland Lewis property first to start that off because the elevation is low. And then when the Golden Triangle summer season kind of kicks off, you guys will be back with the IP first, and then you'll get immediately to putting a drill down the anomaly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the beauty of having Newfoundland too. You can work out there year round, and it keeps news flow more consistent, and it gives us the ability to stay busy. Keeps me in the hot seat. So
that's for sure. All right.
I'd like to touch, I don't know if you have any more questions regarding this. I just want to quickly fill in. We do have one more target out at the rock and roll that we don't have news out yet for, but we also did an IP survey over the Heather target. Okay. And so keep your eyes out for news about this in the coming couple of weeks. Another IP survey over top of an area that we worked. Well, originally, again, it was worked briefly, and we got out in 2019. I remember one of our geologists jumped out of the helicopter. The first rock she grabbed, it came back 25 grams gold. That piqued our interest for sure, and we've been back each year since, starting with a soil grid that showed a nice anomaly in antimony, in gold, molybdenum, and copper. So all your porphyry indicators. And since then, this last year, we ran some IP over top of that and extended the soil grid and took some more rock samples and mapping. So also quite excited about what's going on here. And I think we're in a great place to have two, potentially drill ready targets here at the Rock and Roll for this summer. So
Yeah.
keep your eyes out for that news coming in the next couple weeks.
Oh, definitely. The news just keeps getting better. It looks like you guys have three exciting targets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
definitely keep our eyes peeled out on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a busy time, but I'm happy to be busy. It's looking up
That's
from
great.
here.
Yeah, so sounds like it's going to be a very exciting year for you, Carl, and the team at Etruscus. So thank you very much today for taking the time to speak with me, going over through your properties. So if there's any questions that investors have, I think they can go to your website. It's down at the bottom right there, EtruscusResources.com.
Yep.
All right.
And yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for having me and let me tell this story a bit. And yeah, let's hope we get rewarded for our hard work so far. And
Yep.
yeah, hope for a good season.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.